The corridors of the UNS Horizon gleamed under sterile white lights, the air humming faintly with the ship's life support systems. It was a vessel meant for peace, a floating monument to the fragile treaty between Earth and the Zalari Dominion. Yet tension hung in the air, coiling like an invisible serpent between the joint patrols that stalked the halls, human marines and alien enforcers forced into uncomfortable alliance. Lieutenant Vrexkar moved with rigid precision, his clawed hands clasped behind his back. His bark-textured skin caught the harsh lighting, casting deep shadows across his scarred face. To human eyes, he was monstrous, towering, angular, a creature seemingly hewn from some ancient, gnarled forest. Among his own kind, he was a veteran of countless reconciliations, a trusted arm of the Zalari Council. Yet the humans were new, volatile, emotional in ways that unsettled him more than the chemical sting of Earth's unfiltered air. As he rounded a corner near a restricted zone, his sharp hearing caught a soft, irregular scuff of small shoes against metal flooring. A child, a human one, stood alone, wide-eyed and trembling, mere meters from a console that monitored the ship's vital energy systems. Vrexkar stiffened. Children were rare aboard diplomatic missions, and vulnerable. This was an unsanctioned presence. In Zalari culture, discipline was immediate and physical. Hesitation was weakness. He advanced with slow, deliberate steps, his heavy boots clanking against the floor. "You are trespassing," he rumbled, his voice deep enough to vibrate the panels on the walls. The boy flinched and stumbled backward, bumping into the console. A warning light blinked red for a moment before settling back to green. Vrexkar's heart raced. Even minor disruption to the energy regulators could cascade into catastrophe. I was looking for my dad," the boy whimpered, tears already welling. His voice cracked under the weight of fear, raw and human. Vrexkar's patience, a tightly wound coil, snapped. Without thinking, guided by instinct and cultural conditioning, he reached out and struck the boy sharply across the face with the flat of his hand. The sound echoed, a sickening crack against the metallic silence. The child collapsed to the ground, clutching his cheek, wailing in pain and terror. The corridor froze. Every soldier within earshot turned their heads. Human marines, half a dozen, stormed around the corner, weapons raised in a heartbeat. Behind them, Zalari guards shifted uneasily, hands moving toward their belts. Vrexkar straightened, his massive form casting a long shadow over the crumpled boy. He did not flinch, nor retreat. His face bore no triumph, only a grim certainty that he had done what necessity demanded. Discipline was swift, discipline was mercy. The child was alive, unharmed beyond a bruised cheek. In his mind, he had averted greater disaster. The humans, predictably, did not see it that way. Commander Owens was among the first to reach the boy. His jaw clenched as he gathered the sobbing child into his arms, inspecting the vivid red mark blooming across his pale skin. His eyes, sharp and blue as broken ice, flicked up to Vrexkar with barely contained fury. What the hell happened here? Owens barked, his voice like a lash across the tense assembly. He endangered critical systems. Vrexkar replied, each word measured, precise. I applied correction to prevent further threat. Owens stared, disbelieving, then looked to the other Marines. They shifted, waiting for an order, fingers twitching near their triggers. Put your hands where I can see them, Lieutenant, Owens said, tone low, dangerous. Vrexkar hesitated. In Zalari law, an officer had near unquestionable authority aboard vessels. But this was human law too, and already he could feel the tidal pull of their chaotic emotions dragging the situation into deeper waters. Slowly, with deliberate movements, Vrexkar raised his hands. His clawed fingers splayed wide in a gesture of nonviolence. Behind Owens, a new figure appeared, Ambassador Carson, pale and furious. The resemblance between him and the boy left no doubt of their connection. He pushed through the crowd, kneeling by his son, murmuring reassurances. "Is this your idea of peacekeeping?" Carson roared, rounding on the assembled aliens. "Beating children." The words hung heavy in the air. Rexcar could feel the eyes of every human soldier drilling into him, feel the crackling tension as a single wrong move could spark gunfire. His mind raced for protocols, precedents, anything to bridge the widening gulf between his culture's hard-edged teachings and these humans' volatile, tender emotions. "I did not intend grievous harm," Rexcar said, though he knew even as the words left him that they would not be enough. Owens rose to his full height, Timmy clinging to his side, and spoke with a weight of command. "This incident will be formally addressed," he said. "Until then, Lieutenant, you are confined to quarters. Surrender your weapon." Rexcar unfastened his belt, letting his sidearm clatter to the floor with a metallic ring. Two Marines stepped forward, cautiously, to escort him. His mind boiled with 1,000 arguments he knew would fall on deaf ears. As he was led away, Rexcar allowed himself a single glance over his shoulder. The boy, Timmy, peeked out from behind Owen's leg, fear etched in his young face, his cheeks streaked with tears. The peace they had all struggled to build now trembled on a knife's edge, and deep in Rexcar's heart, he felt the first stirrings of doubt, an unwelcome but growing suspicion that this single act, done in reflex, might unravel everything. Behind him, the murmurs of anger rose like a gathering storm. The silence in the command chamber was suffocating. Screens flickered softly along the walls, displaying images of alien nebulae and internal ship schematics, but none of the assembled officers spared them a glance. All attention was riveted to the two figures standing before the tribunal table. Commander Owens, rigid with authority, and Ambassador Carson, seething with a fury barely held in check. Lieutenant Rexcar sat isolated to the side, heavy cuffs clasped around his wrists. His expression was unreadable, but a faint ripple along the ridges of his skull betrayed his unease. He understood, finally and painfully, that human justice bore no resemblance to Zalari discipline. "The incident," Owens said, voice clipped, "has escalated beyond personal grievance. It threatens the mission's integrity and the future of human-Zalari cooperation." Across the room, a human medic tended to young Timmy, whose cheek was now a mottled canvas of purples and yellows. The boy sat quietly, clutching a worn cloth doll, an anachronistic comfort in this sterile environment. Ambassador Carson stood, fists clenched at his sides. "That thing assaulted my son on a peacekeeping tour. We're supposed to trust them, and this is what we get." Murmurs rippled through the human ranks. Even some of the alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. Trust, once cracked, rarely healed cleanly. "The lieutenant's actions are inexcusable," Owens agreed, though the words tasted like ash. "But retaliation will fracture this alliance beyond repair." Carson paced, agitated, his polished shoes clicking sharply against the floor. "And what would you have me do? Let it pass? Smile for the cameras while my son wears the proof of their barbarism on his face?" No one answered. The question wasn't fair, but neither was the situation. Rexcar remained silent, his own sense of justice and regret a tumult of conflicting instincts. He had acted out of duty, but in this culture, intent mattered far less than perception. "The Zalari delegation has lodged a formal defense," Owens continued. He tapped a control pad, and a translation played aloud. "Discipline is essential to prevent chaos. Immediate correction of dangerous behavior is considered an act of protection among our kind." A wave of disgust rolled through the humans. "Protection? By striking a child?" Rexcar lifted his gaze. "I acted as I was taught, to protect the child from worse consequences. In my world, Inaction would be cruelty. The room bristled. Understanding did not equate to forgiveness. "We are not your world," Carson said coldly. "And we do not beat our children to protect them." Outside the chamber, the wider ship simmered. Rumors of the incident spread like wildfire. Human Marines clustered in tight groups, weapons polished, tongues sharpened by anger. Among the Zalari, warriors spoke of the humans' fragility, their inability to enforce order even among their young. Trust, so painstakingly negotiated, unraveled strand by strand. In the ship's mess hall, an off-duty Marine slammed his fist onto a table. "We can't just let it slide. What happens next? They start disciplining us." Others grunted their agreement. Lines were forming, invisible yet deeply felt. Every misunderstanding, every unspoken resentment, found new life in the boy's bruised face. Commander Owens knew it. He felt the tremors building beneath the ship's polished facade, a seismic unrest that could crack the mission apart. He summoned his inner council, humans and Zalari alike, hoping to forge a fragile consensus. The meeting was strained from the outset. Words were measured, glances sharp, and every sentence carried the weight of potential disaster. "We demand accountability," Ambassador Carson declared. "Immediate removal of the lieutenant from all duties. A public apology. Reparations." The lead Zalari diplomat, an elder named Counselor Jex, clicked his mandibles in a gesture of unease. "Our laws. Your laws do not apply here." Owens cut in sharply. "This is a joint mission, governed by shared protocols." Vrexkar remained silent, a shadow among louder voices. Part of him raged against the injustice of it all. He had followed duty, followed the instinctive codes bred into him since hatching. But even he could not deny the visible harm his actions had caused. The raw, animal fear in the child's eyes still haunted him. In the end, compromise came, but bitterly. Vrexkar would be confined to quarters, stripped of his authority for the duration of the mission. A formal apology, drafted with painstaking care to bridge cultural divides, would be issued under his name. And reparations, resources, training offers, symbolic gestures of goodwill, would flow to the human delegation. It was a solution that satisfied no one but prevented immediate violence. As the council dispersed, Vrexkar rose, flanked by two guards. He paused at the doorway, glancing once more at Timmy. The boy watched him back, face unreadable, small hands twisting the fabric of his doll. Vrexkar opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came. What apology could cross the chasm between worlds, between species, between child and soldier? The doors hissed shut behind him, leaving the humans alone with their wounded pride and deeper questions. In the darkened corridor, Owens exhaled slowly, rubbing the bridge of his nose. His communicator buzzed, an encrypted message flashing urgent. He tapped the device, frowning as he read. Unrest brewing. Unauthorized gatherings among human Marines. Potential for escalation. Immediate action recommended. Trouble was coming, faster than anyone wanted to admit. Commander Owens glanced at Ambassador Carson, whose face was set in cold, implacable lines. The ambassador met his gaze and said only one word: justice. Owens knew then that this was far from over. The riot began with a rumor. By the time it reached the ship's lower decks, the story had twisted into something grotesque. A Zalari officer had assaulted a human child and received no punishment, protected by alien favoritism. It no longer mattered that Vrexkar was confined to his quarters, stripped of his rank. Perception had overtaken truth, and anger, once kindled, spread like a fever. Lieutenant Harper, a broad-shouldered Marine with a long memory for grudges, stood atop a mess hall table, rallying the discontented. His voice thundered through the crowd, each word fueling the rising heat. They think they can touch our children and walk away. What's next? How long before they decide we need discipline? The crowd roared back, a chaotic mix of outrage and fear. Weapons weren't drawn yet, but fists clenched white around table edges and bell holsters. It would take only a spark. In the command center, Commander Owens watched the situation unfold on security monitors, his face carved from stone. He snapped orders into his communicator, deploying containment teams, sealing sensitive areas. The ship wasn't a war zone yet, but it sat on the very brink. He glanced toward Ambassador Carson, who stood by the observation window, arms folded, expression unreadable. The ambassador had neither condoned nor condemned the gathering storm, and in his silence, Owens heard tacit approval. "Call them off," Owens said, voice low but cutting, "before this gets out of hand." Carson didn't look at him. "Maybe it needs to get out of hand. You think blood on the floor will bring your son comfort?" Owens shot back. "Or justice." Carson's shoulders tensed. For a moment, Owens thought he might lash out, but instead the ambassador turned slowly, his face pale with fury barely restrained. "I think respect only comes when you show you're willing to fight for it," Carson said. "They humiliated us. They need to see there are consequences." In his cell, Vrexkar sat cross-legged on the floor, armored hands resting on his knees. He could hear the distant thrum of unrest, the subtle shift in the ship's vibration as security doors locked and unlocked, isolating trouble spots. He had been trained for chaos, but never as its target. The door slid open with a hiss, and a shadow filled the threshold. It was Timmy. The boy slipped inside before the guards could react, his small figure dwarfed by the room's cold sterility. His cheeks still bore the fading mark of Vrexkar's strike, but his eyes, wide and searching, held no hatred, only confusion. Vrexkar rose slowly, careful not to appear threatening. He knelt to bring himself closer to the child's level, his massive form folding with surprising grace. "You should not be here," Vrexkar said, his voice softer than the boy had ever heard. "I wanted to see you," Timmy said. His voice trembled, but he did not back away. "Everyone says you're a monster." Vrexkar flinched inwardly. Among his people, such words carried deep meaning, an accusation not easily forgiven. "Are you a monster?" the boy asked. The alien considered his answer carefully. "I am what I was made to be." Timmy frowned, struggling to understand. "You hit me." "I did," Vrexkar admitted, "because I thought it was right. But I was wrong." The simple admission seemed to shake something loose in the boy's expression. He shifted, drawing closer, studying Vrexkar with the frankness only children possessed. "My dad says you should be locked up forever." Vrexkar inclined his head. "That may happen." Timmy hesitated, then asked, "Will you hurt anyone else?" "No," Vrexkar said. "Never again." The boy considered that, his small face a storm of warring emotions. Then, without warning, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Vrexkar's thick, armored forearm. The gesture was clumsy, uncertain, but unmistakably an embrace. Shock held Vrexkar frozen for a heartbeat. Then slowly, reverently, he lowered his other hand and rested it lightly on Timmy's back, as if afraid to crush something so fragile. The guards finally moved, pulling Timmy gently away. The boy resisted at first, but Vrexkar gave him a slight nod, and he went willingly. As the door slid shut, Vrexkar exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. For the first time since the incident, something within him eased. Not forgiveness. He knew better than to expect that. But a bridge, however tenuous, beginning to form. Elsewhere on the ship, however, the situation worsened. Lieutenant Harper's mob, now over 100 strong, surged toward the central operations hub. Makeshift weapons appeared, tools, pipes, a few unauthorized sidearms smuggled past security checks. Automated defense turrets trained on the advancing crowd, red targeting lasers dancing across armored vests and exposed skin. Commander Owens gritted his teeth, fingers poised over the security console. He could order non-lethal dispersal, gas, stun fields, but even that could spiral into a massacre if the Zalari misread the act. He needed another option. "Give me Vrexkar." Owens barked to his aide. The young officer blinked, confused. "Sir, he's under confinement." "Not anymore." Within minutes, Vrexkar was escorted to the command bridge, still wearing his cuff restraints. Owens met him at the entrance, expression tight. "I don't know if you care about saving this alliance," Owens said, "but if you do, now's your chance." Vrexkar's mandibles clicked once, thoughtfully. He surveyed the crowd swelling on the monitors, the primal violence coiling behind their eyes. "I will go," he said simply. "And if they shoot you?" Vrexkar bared his teeth in a grim facsimile of a human smile. "Then let it be said I died for peace." Without waiting for permission, he turned and strode toward the bay doors, into the heart of the storm. Behind him, Commander Owens could only watch and pray that it would be enough. The bay doors parted with a mechanical sigh, spilling harsh fluorescent light onto the crowd. For a breathless moment, the riot paused, a collective intake of surprise. No security teams, no barriers, no stun gas descending from the vents. Only Vrexkar, alone and unarmed, walking toward them. The humans shifted, confused by the unexpected sight. Lieutenant Harper, at the front, grunted a sharp command, but it faltered against the sudden uncertainty. Their anger had fed on the idea of injustice, of aliens hiding behind walls and bureaucracy. They hadn't prepared for this. Vrexkar moved slowly, each step deliberate. His massive frame, usually so imposing in armor, now seemed almost vulnerable in the simple gray fatigues of confinement. His hands, still cuffed, hung openly before him, signaling submission rather than threat. He stopped a few meters from the front line, close enough that even the most jittery among them could strike if they wished. He raised his voice, the resonance carrying without need for amplification. "I am Vrexkar of the Zalari Protectorate. I have wronged one of your young. I have shamed myself and endangered the peace we built together." Harper sneered. "Words won't fix what you broke." Vrexkar bowed his head slightly. "You are correct. No apology can undo what has been done. But I offer it nonetheless, not to erase guilt, but to acknowledge it." He sank to one knee, an almost ceremonial posture among his kind, but recognizable even to human eyes as a gesture of surrender. Gasps rippled through the assembly. "I place myself at your mercy," he said, voice unwavering. "Judge me as you would your own." Harper stepped forward, weapon drawn. Others followed, emboldened, raising pipes and blades. The room thickened with the electric scent of violence barely contained. Commander Owens, watching from the command center, tensed. One wrong move now, and they would all drown in blood. Timmy slipped through the gathered crowd, his small body weaving between towering adults. Before anyone could stop him, he planted himself firmly between Vrexkar and the nearest weapon. The boy raised his arms wide, trembling but determined. "Stop!" Timmy cried. His voice cracked, but it rang clear across the bay. "He's sorry." He said he's sorry. Harper hesitated, gun wavering. Timmy turned, facing Vrexkar. His small hands reached for the alien's cuffs, tugging uselessly against the locking mechanism. "He didn't mean to hurt me," Timmy said, his voice fierce now, strengthened by something deeper than fear. He thought he was helping. Murmurs stirred the crowd again, this time softer, uncertain. Harper's jaw clenched. His grip tightened on his pistol. Years of training, of loyalty to his comrades, warred with the image of a child shielding an alien. "They don't see us as equals," Harper growled. "We're just animals to them." Timmy shook his head vigorously. "Not him." Vrexkar raised his gaze, meeting Harper's eyes directly. There was no challenge in the look, only an exhausted honesty. I did not see you as lesser, he said quietly. Only different, and I fail to understand that difference. That is my shame, not yours. Harper's hand trembled. Slowly, agonizingly, he lowered his weapon. One by one, the others followed, weapons dropping with clatters and metallic echoes onto the deck. Timmy smiled, a small, brilliant thing, and turned back to Vrexkar. Without hesitation, he hugged the alien again, burying his face against the rough fabric of his fatigues. Vrexkar froze, then very carefully placed his cuffed hands against the boy's back, accepting the forgiveness he did not deserve but would honor. Commander Owens exhaled, his body sagging with the weight of narrowly averted catastrophe. He tapped his communicator, issuing orders to stand down security protocols. The ship's systems hummed in acknowledgement, locks disengaging, lights returning to standard illumination. Ambassador Carson arrived moments later, his face thunderous. His gaze swept the scene, the boy, the alien, the Marines standing silent, and his expression flickered with something almost like grief. He approached Timmy, crouching to the boy's level. "You don't have to forgive him," he said quietly. Timmy looked up, fierce and unyielding. "I already did." Carson swallowed hard. He reached out, gently pulling his son away from Vrexkar. For a long moment, he simply stared at the alien, the weight of diplomacy and personal hurt grinding against each other inside him. Finally, Carson straightened. His voice was low but carried to every ear in the bay. "This doesn't fix everything," he said, "but it's a start." It was more than anyone had dared hope for. Over the following days, slow and painful conversations unfolded across the ship. Trust, once shattered, began the long, halting process of repair. Joint patrols resumed. Mess halls reopened to both species. Training seminars were hastily arranged to teach cultural customs and de-escalation techniques. Commander Owens sat through endless briefings, drafting new protocols with the weight of near-disaster pressing on every pen stroke. Ambassador Carson attended most, his presence a constant reminder of how close they had come to losing everything. As for Vrexkar, he was not reinstated to active duty, but he was granted an advisory role. His experience, his mistake, had become a bridge rather than a chasm. He accepted the post without complaint, seeing it not as redemption, but as penance. One evening, in a quiet corner of the ship, Vrexkar and Timmy met again. The boy had a new doll, a stitch figure that bore a remarkable resemblance to a Zalari warrior, complete with exaggerated mandibles and gleaming eyes. Timmy held it up proudly. "This one's you." Vrexkar blinked, uncertain how to respond. "He's the protector," Timmy explained. "He helps people, even when they're scared of him." Vrexkar lowered himself carefully, taking the doll with reverent hands. His voice was thick when he spoke. "Then I will try to be worthy of him." The ship drifted through the silent stars, battered but intact, carrying with it a fragile, hard-won hope that perhaps, just perhaps, peace was still possible, even between worlds that seemed impossibly far apart.